Hey guys, it's Destiny and I'm here with Ted.
Hey, yes, the name's Ted. My pronouns are he, him, and they, them, and I'm probably the person who's going to be talking a lot here. I'm glad you're here to listen to what I have to say about my experience as an asexual, or when I'm going to be referring to it as most of this little segment, ace.
We're both students at the same high school just east of Los Angeles.
Yep, and it's good talking with you here too.
Okay, so I have some questions to ask you. The first one is, how did you come to the realization about your sexuality?
Uh, to make a long story short, I hopped on Discord way back like a couple years ago just to see if I can make any friends and just hang out with people with similar interests. Saw a few people throwing the term around, researched it, and thought it fit pretty well, so now that's what I identify as.
The next question is, what does asexuality mean to you personally?
Um, Basically means that a lot of that. I actually find all sorts of different media involving romantic and sexual stuff. It can actually be a lot of fun, but I just have no desire to partake in any of it myself. I'm not opposed to it specifically, I just don't see the want to ever take part in it.
So when you first got into it, the asexuality community uses a lot of different terms. What do they mean?
Okay, so the way that ace is defined as a lack of attraction, there's the other side to that, which is allo, which is basically defined as having the full experience of attraction and everything. And that's a good, it's a foil, it's the opposite. And there's another term, there's aromantic too, which is in the same way that ace doesn't want to or isn't attracted to sexual things. Aromantics don't want to get involved with romantic stuff as much, and that one also has another shortening, which is aro. Any person on any of these two groups is referred to as aspec, which is a spectrum, because both of the identities start with A and define similar experiences. There's also a bunch of smaller terms that you occasionally might hear thrown around, like gray, which is sort of in the middle between ace and allo, and demi, which is a very specific one where it's like you don't experience it normally, but if you really get to know someone, you might. There's a lot of different little niche terms that the community uses, and you'll see them as if you ever interact with it.
So allo is like what straight is to gay.
More or less.
Mhm. And do you see yourself represented in mainstream media?
That was going to be a hard no. I can't really think of any media that I've specifically watched and I've ever seen anything. There's, in the same way that people headcanon stuff, there's characters where they're not explicitly written as having any specific romantic or sexual stuff, and they don't have any dating or whatnot. Some of those characters can be good to relate to because you can sort of headcanon or act like they are because they functionally are, but very rarely do you ever see any representation, and it's mainly because the identity, you kind of have to explicitly state that someone's ace because otherwise people are going to assume, or maybe they're just not dating someone or something along those lines.
Mhm. And when you seek representation, where do you seek it?
I'm not a person to specifically seek it out most of the time, but I am involved in a couple different ace communities on the internet, and it can just be a lot of fun making different writing, stories, art, just looking at what people have made and partaking in creating it too.
So you mentioned the asexuality community. Is there an understanding of what you're going through in your family and community?
A local community like my friends and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not out because I don't see the need to be, because it's basically just I don't want to date people. That simple. It doesn't need much more explanation than that. So there's no real reason for me, and most of my friends know and never experienced a negative reaction. It's basically just, hey, if you're talking about that sort of stuff, I sometimes I'm fine with it, but I might not want to talk about it, and they just know not to bug me about any of it, and it's totally fine.
Okay. And how does it make you feel when other sexualities in the LGBT community are being represented and not asexuality?
Most of the time, it's a generally positive experience because, well, hey, yo, other people that have somewhat similar experiences are being represented, but at a good portion of the time, it's you normally only see gay people, lesbian people, and very rarely bi people, and it's sort of just they go with what people know already and what is already known to be okay in popular culture, and it just kind of feels like they're only going with what they feel is safe and they're not trying to actually represent anyone. They just know, hey, this is a safe thing we could do and it'll make people feel better, so let's just do that, not for any actual reasons that they don't have any ideological reasons that they think it's a net good to do it. They just do it because they can and they know it'll attract a certain audience.
To be honest, I didn't know what asexuality meant until this year because in movies I've only ever seen like the gay best friend or the lesbian best friend, but that's about it. Like that was just what was shown.
Yeah, movies and TV can be pretty egregious in that area because there's always been the idea of sex sells. It's a marketing term that's broadly applied to all sorts of different things. You add in sexual or romantic stuff, and basically they think that that'll make the show better and it'll make them more money and do better that way. An example of this is if anyone here knows about Archie comics, the original Archie comics, one of the main characters, Jughead, is asexual. They've confirmed it a couple different times here and there, and one thing is that it's been adapted to Riverdale, which is a TV show on Netflix, and they kind of retcon that he very explicitly has an interest in the person that he's with in that show. And yeah, they just got rid of it.
What is it like being ace in regards to the LGBTQ community as a whole?
This is actually one of those things that's actually very interesting. Is okay, mild tangent here. The LGBT plus acronym is terrible and I don't like it whatsoever because to a lot of people it's just, oh, these are the four letters, that must be what it represents. And the plus does a decent job of telling people, well, there's more, but it sort of doesn't explicitly do it. And people just assume, oh, well, it's just these, a couple of sexual orientations, and then, oh, trans people exist. One of those things that you'll occasionally see is the recommendation for another acronym entirely, which is GSRM. And the four letters in order are gender, sexual, and romantic minorities. And it's a lot better, in my opinion, because it explicitly includes all of them. And it also brings up the topic of romantic being a separate thing for sexual, and which is a thing that you'll see a lot in the ace community because you can be one or the other. So you can not like romance but still want to do sexual things, not like sexual things but still want to do romance and anything in between. And GSRM is better for that, and also because it doesn't explicitly label any one term, it very much so tells people, hey, there's more to this, so if you want to go look it up, you can find more information, and I feel like that might help people find terms and learn more. And so, back to the actual question is, in regards to the community as a whole, it varies. A good portion of the time, we're fine because we're basically left alone most of the time because the ace community doesn't really have any of the big drama over labels or anything because we stick to ourselves, and the ace community doesn't have much drama of its own. The broader community is most part fine, but the ace community stays separate mainly because there's a lot of misconceptions that are not fun to deal with, and, well, there's just people that are. The broader LGBT community is often more exclusionary than any of the specific sub-communities because you have all sorts of different people in there, and a lot of the more mainline ones, lesbian, gay, etc., a lot of them, since they're more mainline people and don't know, a lot of them don't know about the smaller terms, and so they just reject them. And there's always a lot of drama about hetero aces, which is basically you can be asexual or aromantic and still date people like you're straight, so you still have a heteromantic partner, but or heterosexual partner, and that there's often drama there because they don't understand that there's still a difference. So for the most part, the community stays on its own, and the broader community is fine, I guess, but oftentimes it's just not worth trying to fit in there.
How has finding the label had an effect on you?
It's generally been a very positive thing. Some people see of it different labels and stuff. They can possibly see it as a burden, and I entirely disagree with that assessment. Finding a label is just about finding something that makes it easier to talk about your experience and connect with people with a similar life. And I've been able to find a bunch of different cool places online. From There's a couple different subreddits where there's a bunch of cool people there, and I'm in a Discord server I'm somewhat active in, and it's been really cool to find people with similar experience and talk with them. It's been a really fun thing, great thing, being able to learn more about myself and other people as a whole, and finding people that I can relate to.
Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you, Ted. I learned a lot that I didn't know before. So, yeah.
Thank you for having me.